Hey folks, John Cantera, the Double Broker Bounty Hunter with you. Welcome back to Stop the Scam. And it is 2025. I don't know about you, but I've written 2024 several times today alone. So got to break that habit, I guess. But whenever you're trying to deal with fraud in the industry, you got to cross your I's and dot your T's, so to speak. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, some compliance stuff. We need to make sure we get everything right. And most importantly, we need to understand better how we vet each other. And that is not just brokers vetting carriers, which is what we typically see, but carriers vetting brokers as well. And that may sound unheard of to most of you carriers out there, but you need to be doing your due diligence too. All that and more coming up.
Welcome to the Double Broker Bounty Hunters Stop the Scam. Here are your hosts, the Double Broker Bounty Hunter, John Cantera, and Dispatch Kate, Caitlin Price.
Another one bites the dust.
I'm sorry. I like Queen. You'll have to sue me on that one. Actually, Queen can go ahead and sue me. Have fun. Thank you very much. It was less than 7 seconds, so we're good. Kate, it is a new year. We missed you last week, so sorry to hear that. I hope you're feeling better.
Yes.
My thanks to Jenny in a Bottle for being the guest co-host, and she is hanging out with us again today. How you doing, Jenny?
Good. Anytime. I don't mind. You know, we're always talking about transportation, so good a time as any.
I hear you that one. I hear that one. And of course, we have our headliner, Claudia the Connector, the Femme Fatale of freight fraud. Claudia, welcome to the show. So glad to have you with us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Before we get deep into this, we do have to show our sponsors a little bit of love. So make sure you bid better with AccuBid.
Do you know your cost per mile? Have you been hitting your profit margins? Do you struggle with bidding in a way that is both profitable and competitive? Would it be worth it to have all this information right in front of you? By calculating your cost per mile, AccuBid Pro helps you stay profitable in an industry still struggling to recover. In order to calculate your cost per mile, AccuBid Pro asks you questions about your business expenses. Our goal is to help you understand what you need to keep operating in order to keep up with the game and maintain your business. Enter your origin and destination, and we show you what you should bid based on your personal cost per mile in order to be profitable, even including a more detailed breakdown of each bid. Download the app today and get your 30-day free trial of AccuBid Pro, available on the App Store and Google Play. Bid smarter, bid faster, bid better with AccuBid Pro.
Yes, with AccuBid, first 30 days are free. Make sure you download it from the AccuBid Apple App Store or Google Play. All right. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the fun. Claudia, why don't you go ahead and refresh our audience with who you are and what it is that you do?
Sure. Hi, my name is Claudia Catlett. I work for a family that is involved in transportation, has been for many years. We have, you'll hear me speak mostly on the brokerage side of things. There is a brokerage that they run, as well as an asset carrier. We run around 55 to 65 trucks about east of I-35. So and I work insurance and claims for both sides of those business. As you all know, fraud has gone crazy in the industry, which has had the brokerage side. I've taken on more of a risk management role there. So yes, there's claims, yes, there's that, but it's additionally trying to prevent those claims from happening by making sure what carriers we're hiring and that kind of thing on the front end. So that's where I am. I've been doing this about 3 years now, and everything I've learned is trial by fire. So here I am.
So Claudia, are you saying that you're not perfect?
I am the farthest from it.
I find that very hard to believe. You we've worked together in a couple occasions, actually, me representing carriers to you, and I've had to go through the wickets in trying to get carriers approved through you. And sometimes it's about the relationship that ends up getting them through at the end of the day, which, hey, I'm eternally grateful for. So are my carriers. But you've got a pretty stringent set of requirements to be able to book loads with certain kinds of carriers. As a very blanket type thing, what kind of carriers do you look for? How do you critique them, and what kind of requirements do you have when you're screening new carriers for the first time?
Well, I mean, it depends on what the load is, right? So first of all, we do have as most brokerages do, you're going to have a set of, this is our guideline. Our guideline has absolutely changed quite a bit in the last 2 years. And frankly, I know that you say it's strict, but it's not as strict as I would like for it to be. So, so just so you know that. We require, as a whole, we say, okay, we want to have at least 9 months of authority prior to booking a full truckload. We want to have, we want to have MCs that have inspections. Now, listen, don't slay me before I get finished talking, because there are caveats to all of it. Yes, we want to have inspections. We want to do that. Of course, we want to check and make sure that the carrier doesn't have a history of, walking away from claims and that kind of thing. Like, where are the reports? There's not just freight guard reports, right? You're looking at multiple platforms of which a carrier can be reported. So we want to look at those kind of things as well. So we're taking into account all of those. We look at our past history with that carrier as well. Sometimes we have a carrier that, hey, they may look great as far as like someone else onboarding with them, but maybe we had a bad experience that was going to be something that we're not going to load them. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be something that I'm going to report out everywhere else either. Maybe it's just like an internal thing that didn't really work out for us. So I'm kind of getting ahead of myself on what that is. But essentially, we're looking for 9 months plus of authority for full truckload. If we're talking straight box trucks, we only require 3 months. I want to check and make sure your insurance is valid. We are a brokerage who will, on top of the certificate of insurance that is listed in we use Highway for our onboarding and vetting. In addition to that, we also request a COI be sent directly to us, listing us as a certificate holder. So that's something that I check on the front end, that we enforce and check on the front end as well. We want to, depending on what that policy looks like, I may ask for, hey, make sure they check your VIN. Make sure you get the VIN from them of the unit that they're going to be using. I may say, they have Motive as an ELD, so please ask them for the ELD link for that unit for the duration of the load. We do require, per our rate con and all documents, that all of our loads be tracked via MacroPoint. We do have the option of, you can track via MacroPoint. If your carrier is already linked to MacroPoint, you can just give us a truck number. Like, you can connect us, and then you can just give us a truck number, and it will connect via ELD to MacroPoint. Or you have the option again of as kind of the other way is using phone to connect and track via MacroPoint. So there are multiple ways of which we do that, but we do require tracking. I mean, again, it just kind of varies on the situation, what type of tracking. MacroPoint is what we say across the board. But again, once in a while, I may have a carrier that I think is a little bit on the fence. I'm not really sure. And maybe them sending me that tracking link is what allows me to say, okay, I feel better about this. Let's go ahead and load that carrier.
Okay, so in terms of industry standard, where do you think you fit in the amount of vetting criteria versus other brokers? Do you think you're strict about it? Do you think you're easier to get through? Where do you think you fall on that scale?
I think I'm pretty average. I don't mean that to like shuffle off anything, but I've known brokers who are still using paper packets, who just like take a phone call and write down an MC number and like roll out. Like I'm not that one. And no, that's not me.
I dealt with one of those earlier today, actually.
but additionally, I'm not one that, there are some brokerages that have, the hard rules that if you have any freight guard on carrier 411, we're not going to load you. If you don't have any inspections, we're not going to load you. If you, whatever, we're not going to load you. That's not who I am. If I have some abilities outside of that, I'm certainly willing to look at them. I will, I saw that comment. Again, like if a unit has 0 inspections, right? And they call in and my team says, hey, you have 0 inspections, I can't load you. And they hang up. Like you can always email risk management and I can give you that, John, for you to put up if you want. But you can always email risk management. And if that carrier is willing to, if their ELD is connected in highway, if they're willing to send me an ELD link, if they're willing to do certain things outside of that, like I don't have to have an inspection. There are other options of which I'm willing to look at different things. But I know there are some brokers who won't even entertain loading a carrier that doesn't have their ELD connected in whatever system they're using. I would love to be that. I'm going to tell you right now, I would love it. That would make me so happy. I think that every brokerage, honestly, every carrier, but specifically within brokerages, we have, there is a massive variance in the amount of risk that a brokerage is willing to take. And that is not just, that's dependent on size, but it's also dependent on the risk of the person who's making the decisions. At our brokerage, at one point, they're willing to take a lot more risks than they're willing to take now. But unfortunately, there were some hard lessons learned within that, which gave me the documentation and backup that I needed to be able to say, this is what I would like to have moving forward. I also recognize that our brokerage does run a lot of spot freight. Is it all of ours? No, absolutely not. It is not all of our freight. We have we do have like quite a bit of dedicated freight, dedicated carriers that we tend to use with those. We don't have to load those out. But sometimes something happens with your dedicated carriers. Sometimes something happens with the loads that just go wonky, or you get an additional bunch of loads dropped on you and just kind of have to figure those things out. And recognizing the amount of freight that we run on that level, I have to recognize that we are not always going to be able to load off the spot board per like all of the requirements that I have that also fit into what ops has. So whether I love it or not, I do have to recognize that there is certainly there are other people in the company that have weight in what needs to be done with that, and I have to recognize that, and we just try to balance that. For you guys as dispatchers, you all understand that it's your job to get that truck loaded. It's my team's job in ops to load trucks and make sure the shippers, that their customers have their freight shipped. That's what their job is. My job is to try to make sure that the carriers they ship with are going to meet our requirements. And so it's not just us, it's almost every brokerage. You're going to have someone in ops and someone in risk management going back and forth, trying to come up with that balance. And our company is a family-owned company. I have X amount of power to be able to do things, and at that point, then it becomes the boss's, the president's call. So there are certainly things that a stricter company, a larger company wouldn't allow to be done. But he makes that call and says that's something that I'm willing to do. that's his job because it's his company. It's their company. They can run that. I obviously can't make all those decisions for them, but I really feel like we're pretty much kind of in the middle. I don't know. What do you think, John?
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. But you do it in a very smart way. You've said before that though typically you would require inspections, there are ways, around that in a way. So you recognize the fact that in July of this last year, DOT put out a notice to all the way stations, you can't get voluntary inspections anymore. That's because, some asset-based brokers were sitting there, they get an out of service, and they run their best truck through over and over and over again, getting voluntary inspections just to clean up their score, and that kind of games the system a bit, which is why DOT put an end to that entire practice. What bothers the heck out of me is that brokers who are hard and fast say you have to have that inspection in order to get a load from us, is that eventually, say maybe 6 months from now, the vast pool of brokers that are available for them to use off the spot market are going to be guys who have something on their record because it takes flipping off a cop or ramming into their cruiser or something worse to get them to pull you over to do an inspection in the first place. At least that's how it feels today. I don't think I've had a single one of my carriers, and I represent 6 carriers right now. I don't think I've had a single one of my carriers get hit for an inspection in the last 6 months. Not a single one. And that's been kind of stressful, especially since most people require those inspections. But I love the way you handle that. There are other ways to prove that people are real. There are other ways to prove that they are effective. And I love that you have that approach.
And don't get me wrong, there's going to be somebody probably is going to pop on him. Maybe there's a possibility there's going to be someone hung up on me because I don't have any inspections from General Transportation. I called them. And that is 100% likely to have happened. So understand that that's what I say when brokerages have this we have this general rule out front that says this is what it is, right? And then you've got but if it's escalated, then I can take it to that level. But someone has to ask for that to happen. You have to reach out and say that and be specific in it. Because I have this happen. I have someone email me and says, "Why can't I set up with you?" And that's it. That's all. If you were told you have to have zero inspections, and that's why you can't, respond back to me and say, "Hey, listen, I got told I can't get loaded because I have 0 inspections, but space, pause for effect. I do have my ELD connected. I am willing to send you the ELD link every time we go to book a load with you," or whatever that is. Make that known whenever you're reaching out. And sometimes you don't know, right? Sometimes we'll say, I don't want you to disclose the information on why we're not using that carrier, because sometimes, and this is what, we make mention of, I understand how frustrating it is from a carrier standpoint to say, you're telling me I can't load with you, but you won't tell me why I can't load with you. So I don't know what to fix. I get that. I do very much understand that, because I have that happen on my carrier side. I have on our carrier side, we've got a physical footprint.
If box trucks need inspections or just
so my frontline rule is for full truckload that they need inspections. I recognize that Sprinter vans, box trucks, units like that are not going to get pulled for inspection near as much as a over the road unit would. So that is, we do make that concession for box trucks as well. And the frustrating part for me with box trucks is that I'll have people tell me, they're like, well, I'm like, you don't have your ELD connected. Well, I'm running a box truck.
You still have to have that ELD connected if you're outside the 150-mile radius, folks.
still gotta have it. So that's not a reason for me to do that. I was working with a carrier the other day that this is the kind of stuff that I truly is that I had this carrier that I'm like, hey, I needed a little bit more information before I was willing to load them. I got their COI, didn't have an updated COI for them. Theirs policy was a scheduled autos policy, and they run on and off of those. So anytime that's the case, like at least on that initial look, when I'm looking at, I want to make sure that I'm checking that VIN against that policy, make sure that looks good. So, I asked for that. And the guy who was booking the load, when I first talked to him, he said, hey, do you run this lane very often? I've got 3 trucks that run back, it was California to Arizona. And I said, I can't speak to that. I'm the one who's helping you with setup. That's going to be my ops team who can tell you more about that. But I said to him, hey, you run Motive. I see that you've got Motive connected on this unit. Can you go ahead and send me the ELD link to track for this load, for the amount of time for the load? And at that point, he's like, I've already done everything you asked me. I don't want to do anything else. Just take me off the load. Just don't give me the load. I literally needed one thing. And I said, well, help me understand like what the situation is, because like I'm ready to send this load. And like, you're telling me that you can't do that. He's like, well, I've already done everything else. I'm wasting time. And now I need to go look for another load. I'm like, you have less than 30 seconds of work to do to send me what I need so that I can send you this load that you've been trying to get. Like, it was about an hour process waiting for, and that wasn't on us. That was waiting for the insurance certificate to get sent over from the agency. And he didn't want to send it to me. And I work on the other side. Like, I know how long it takes to send a link from Motive. It literally was less than 20 seconds, like right at 20 seconds it took me to copy over and send it. So I don't understand when someone is asking you for something that's going to just like push it over the edge. Like, I wasn't asking him for money. I wasn't asking him to send me his driver's license or his home address. I was literally asking for a link that was at his fingertips, because I thought, well, maybe your drivers have their own Motive and you don't have access to it. So I asked him, I said, well, do you have access to the Motive? And he's like, yeah, I do. Just didn't want to send it.
That's crazy.
Situation like this, I'm like, to do like from me. I'm literally like right here saying, like, on paper it might look a little bit, or if there's another carrier that I'm like, the address is okay, like I think using registered agent, maybe everybody, but you 2 or 3 I can get by with not having having your, that you have a regular office, right? That makes sense. I understand that. I don't know, like the last ELD ping that I see on, like, shows a couple states away, how you're making. Go ahead and send you over link. If you send me that, I'll be able to do this. Like, I'm to verify them. I'm to do that. But when met with, like, I don't that.
Claudia, I'm sorry, you're breaking up really bad. I'm only getting about every other syllable. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like your audio is starting to snap. I keep hearing a snap sound, and then it cuts out.
Let me see.
Hey, while she works on fixing that, I feel like I may have mentioned this like a couple episodes ago, but I still have this note here. And so one day I called Pinnacle about a load that they had, and a new person, clearly new, answered the phone and was trying to help me with it. It took forever. I think I was on the phone with her for like 15 minutes, giving her our information, just getting load details, like she was clearly new. And we agreed on a rate, like, obviously I asked for more, whatever, we agreed to the rate, everything was fine. And at the very, very end, she goes, oh, my coworker covered it. And I was like, I just kind of dumbfounded, like, really? We just went through all this fucking shit for 15 minutes with your slow ass for you to tell me that? And then I heard somebody in the background, her coworker said, "Okay, now hang up."
I remember you telling that story. Can you guys hear me okay?
Much better.
Okay.
Much better.
Sorry about that. I was trying to do better with the things. I get that, Kate, and I think that is all about internal process within the company as well, right? So what my team does is our system, if a load coordinator is is literally within the load, like to the screen that they would be booking that load, no one else can pop into that. So it will prevent anyone else from doing that. But let's say, Kate, I'm working with you to book that load, but I'm doing some other things too. So what I can do is I can go in and I can put my load on hold, and I can put my initials and put the MC that I'm waiting on. And we're going to go ahead and get some stuff finished up. We're going to take care of that. And then as long as everything sorts out for that, then, hey, once we get your stuff together, I can go ahead and go back in the load, take it off hold, put you on it, and then we're good to go, and no one else is doing that. And I think that also varies based on the brokerage on who's working on those loads. For instance, when you've got agents like agents that work for, like under, LDI or Landstar or whatever, and there's only one person in that office, like they haven't got to the point that they have a staff yet. There's only one person. You don't have to worry about anyone else booking that load because there's only one person doing it. When you get to the point, some teams, where we are is we've got some teams that no one is going to book a load except for like this one person for that particular team. It may be that
That's exactly what I was thinking. I feel that's how it should be. That would be the best
how it
structure.
always is, because let's say I'm a broker, I'm an account manager, broker, whatever term you want to use within the industry, for the position that I've got loads that need to be booked, and there's a team of people trying to help me do that. Maybe I'm not to the level that I have my own person, right? I don't have a designated, this is my load coordinator, this is my team to help me do this. I'm still building my book. I'm still trying to get there. And this is why I can't do that job in this way, okay? So what they would do is they say, hey, I'm busy building my book. I can't take the time to do all the booking and do all the things because I'm trying to work with new customers. I trust that my team handles this. But when they do that, then instead of having one dedicated person, it's the pool. It's the pool of whoever's available to go ahead and try to book that load is the one that's going to book on it. It seems like if my understanding is correct, and please understand, like, this is literally the only transportation company I've ever worked for. So anything that I understand about like how things are done other places or what other people have told me. But it seems that, your giant brokerages and big companies, they're going to have like whoever's got like whatever the load is open until that's booked, it's going to be available for anybody to be able to book. If you've got a smaller, one-on-one operation, that might be different. Our company it took us a while to get to the point that we had enough load coordinators and our account managers that we were able to kind of assign in those ways to say kind of like in pods or however you want to say it. But even still, like if someone's out, like if one team member is out, then everybody's trying to cover that team member's freight. So there are times that within our company, you're still going to have, unfortunately, that's going to happen, but less likely now. Like we're trying to do some things to streamline processes, so that's not the case. I'm sure all of you have had the experience of sitting on the phone a remarkable amount of time just to be told that as soon as it picked up that the load you're calling about has already been covered.
Look, let me just point out that I have people tell me all the time, oh, my coworker covered it, sorry. But in like 2 minutes, this particular situation pissed me off because I was on the phone for so long. And that lady clearly was not like, they shouldn't have had her she shouldn't have been in that point of her training to where she was like picking up the phone and working on booking loads and shit. That's what irritates me.
Mm-hmm.
It happens. I think every day I end up hearing at least once, oh, my coworker just covered that. And I get it. You're right. The big brokers
Yeah,
that
but
would
like
have a
you go
team,
through the
4 or
thing,
5 people.
like,
You hear them in the background. Hey, I just got that load covered. God damn it! I'm calling about that load.
yeah, not like, oh, what's your MC? Oh, I can't find it. Oh, what's your DOT? Oh, what's your truck number? Just taking, and like it's taken forever in between every individual thing. Most of the time they're like, oh yeah, it's concrete slabs, 15,000 pounds, 40 feet long, need straps, edge protectors, whatever. Okay, cool. We can do that. Let's go. Oh, sorry, coworker just covered. Okay, fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Not like going through all.
You know what?
I don't know. It's irritating
That's
when
the
you're on the
industry.
phone with somebody for like 15 minutes and they're just
Yeah.
dragging balls. You're like, oh my God. Like,
So,
I can agree with that.
so there's a new tool that that is out, and I mean, it's not just, I mean, essentially, so I think there's a love-hate within our industry about AI, right? And like its capabilities, what it can do, what it can't do. There's some great things that it can do. I don't think that carrier vetting should be left up to AI completely. There are people who do use, and I'm exploring some options that will kind of assist in utilizing this, but it essentially says, okay, here's all the information that you're going to look at manually. I'm going to push it all together here and use your form. You say yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Okay, so here's the answer that you would have come up with in 30 minutes, and here's your answer in less than 30 seconds. So AI has a great ability in that, but I've also seen many times where AI has accepted certificates of insurance that look wonky AF. I've seen where AI has misread letters, so it makes it look like VINs aren't covered that are covered. I've seen where AI has mistyped a number, or misread a number in something, so the dollars and cents don't come out right or something like that. So AI, I believe, has its full, I mean, I recognize that that's where we're going with a lot of things, but I personally still believe that there still has to be like human eyes to audit and come back and look at different things with that, to be able to look at and make certain exceptions. So I say,
how pervasive is AI currently in the industry, in your opinion?
It's getting much, much more pervasive. And where you guys are going to be impacted the most by it is the ones that are answering calls. So we have a system that is, it's essentially an AI system. And what it does, we just started using it, so I can't speak to you about everything about it. But here's what it does. It takes, let's say, Jeannie does something different. She doesn't book loads, right?
No, I do collections.
No.
Okay. All right. But let's just pretend for a hot second that Jeannie is in booking loads, right? So the three of you are calling me about a load. And traditionally, the three of you would call into my office and you would all be put in a queue. And whoever was the first one to dial the last number to get to me is going to be the first person I speak to. Let's say that's John, and John's carrier is shit. But I'm just kind of like in a hurry. And I'm like, I'm just like, I'll go ahead and, what the hell? I'm going to go ahead and send it over to risk management and see if I can get them to do an approval. So now risk management is tied up trying to get an approval for this carrier, not realizing there are two more carriers on the line for this particular load. Now I've got dispatch Kate, who's got a pretty decent carrier over there, and I've got Jeannie in the bottle, who's over here with a legit like Jeannie wish fucking carrier that's like already set up in my system, that's already everything, it's run multiple loads for me, that I know is great. And I don't get to Jeannie because I'm over here messing around with my load coordinator trying to approve John's load. I could have done that much quicker with Kate's carrier, or I could have just been able to assign the load if Jeannie had gotten through on the call. So what the system that we're using does, whenever you call in, it's going to ask you, it's going to look at the phone number that you're calling from, and it's going to ask you if you're calling about a particular MC. So if you're calling in off of the number that is associated with that MC and FMCSA, it's initially just going to say, are you calling for, let's just use my company, are you calling for ART Transport, MC, blah, 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 blah. And you would say yes. Or you would say no, because John calls from like John and Kate both call in from multiple carriers, right? So you're using the same phone number to call in. Maybe you've called into my system on a different MC, and they call and they say, are you calling about the MC you used yesterday, whatever that MC number is? And John would say no. And then it would give you the opportunity to put in the MC that you're calling about. Then it asks you what load you're calling about. We have to choose to have that be a requirement. We do not, because once in a while we post a load in like DAT that we don't have a load number for yet because it's not built in the system. So I don't have a load number, but I know that load is going out. It's just not to that point yet. So they still will go ahead and book it, so or post it so they can get it booked. So we don't require the load number, but it's so much better if you can have it to put it in. So then you put that load number in, and then it's just going to put you in a queue in line. So the cool thing about that is the three of you have called me at the same time. The three of you, we're using AI to get all of that data from you at the same time. Kate, you were talking about spending so much time getting all of this information to this new person who didn't know how to get it, right? They don't know what to ask. They don't know what to do. This system is already lined out. It's already asking you all of those things. And so then in my system, I can see which one of you are connected to my company already. I can see which one of you pass or fail the rules that I have. I can see which one of you is calling from, let's see, I'm trying to remember the columns. So it says, if you're set up in the system, it gives you the MC you're calling from, tells you if that MC is a pass or fail. If you're in the system, because you can be in my system and still be a fail, right? Those things are there. So it shows you all of that. So if the three of you are calling on that load, I can, and your load number is there as well. I'm the load coordinator, and I'm like, okay, I'm on my computer. I need to book this load. I've got it posted to the system. You guys are all calling in, and I look and I can see that there are, 4 callers calling in off of this same load. And I know that Jeannie in the bottles carrier is the one that's got everything set up already. So I can choose to jump the queue and answer her call because I know I know that we can book this load quicker and I'm not wasting anyone else's time. The other cool part about that is that once that load is booked, then it will automatically, anyone else who's in that queue is waiting on that same load number, it'll say that load was just covered and hang up. So you're not wasting time to wait on a load that's already been covered. It's saving you time. It's saving us time because we're not messing around with a bunch of people. It's not fair that Kate has to wait on the line for 10 minutes because I'm busy picking up and hanging up calls with carriers who I know already don't meet my criteria. So it allows that. So in that way, I think AI is great. I think that there are some really cool things that it's going to allow. I think that it allows small companies that are trying to build, I'm an owner operator and now I've got 6 trucks and I've only had 3, and managing all of this paperwork is a little bit much, but I can find a system to help me file my BOLs and help me file all that stuff regularly. And then all I have to do is go back and check an audit once in a while, or when someone comes back and says something's going on with that paperwork. So there are things that I think it's great that it's going to allow. It's going to allow small companies to be able to do that without having to add additional staff to provide opportunity for growth. So that's one way that I think it's going to help, but also there are things that it absolutely takes away. John, I'm able to, you and I have a relationship. When you call me about one of your carriers, if I'm like, okay, Dad, I'm like, bruh, I'm going to need to make sure that lease agreement needs to look like XYZ or that contract or whatever. And I know that John's not going to BS me and he's going to tell me the truth. And that's what it is. I'm like, John, I'm telling you right now, I will come bang down your door if something goes on with this freaking load. I will come after you. That's okay. Then I could say, okay, I might be able to overlook something that would normally be a no because I have a personal relationship. Those are things that AI is taking away. Mm-hmm. Right. So there's some, it's a pro and con.
AI doesn't have a way to discern certain things that the human interaction has the way to discern. Exactly. Sometimes you can tell when you're talking to somebody, you can hear in their voice the conviction or the deception, or they're trying 100%. To be kind of shady about something. When you're talking to them on the phone, you can hear that waver in their voice, like they don't really know what they're talking about, or they're not stateside, or they're whatever. And I'm not even talking about the accent. I'm talking about just in the verb, just the terminology they use or how they address
Right.
you.
Right. Absolutely. And the other thing that here's what I think is, I'm not really sure how I feel about it for AI, and that is that there are multiple big brokerages out there who use AI to negotiate a rate. And so you can call in and say, you know, it will ask you what rate you have, and then we'll go back and forth with you. I don't really know how I feel about that, to be perfectly honest. Jury's out. Jury's really out for me on that. But it's happening. So those are definitely the types of things that you're going to see AI involved with in the industry. I think there's a massive amount of AI work being done that no one is seeing, particularly with our carrier vetting platforms. Most of them are using as far as I know, all of them are using AI in some way, shape, or form in the background that is bringing in information from whether it's the FMCSA database or the multitude of other places that these vetting platforms get their information. Carrier Assure just connected with GenLogs. You know, it's been a big issue with Carrier Assure at some time in the past with how, you know, it seemed very unfair to box trucks, Sprinter trucks, small units, because they're not getting inspections, and inspections has a big weight on the scoring with them. Well, now they're connected with GenLogs, and so GenLogs, are any of you familiar with GenLogs and how it operates?
Only slightly.
Okay, so I mean, I'm almost enough to be dangerous, but not quite that much. But essentially, GenLogs is a third-party company. It's not like FMCSA or anything. It's an independent private company. They have cameras, and other sources of information around the country. They are primarily on the East Coast, but they are moving out toward the West and getting more, locations is the right word. So they take information. It's not license plates. It's literally like the side of the door. So the side of the door, they're looking for DOT numbers. So John, you mentioned that none of the 6 of your carriers have had an inspection in the last six months. I would be interested to know if we could find out if any of those carriers had been tagged by GenLogs in the last 6 months. As a matter of fact, I may have a way that we can find that out. So after this, maybe we should see, just like do a little.
Yeah, we'll have to play with that.
And see how that looked like. So but that's all done via AI. The GenLogs is AI. The system is AI. Our cameras are AI. I mean, your dash cams are becoming AI empowered or powered. I don't know, capable, whatever that word. I don't really know the right word to use with that. But I mean, AI is definitely having a huge impact on our industry. I hope that people do it with, utilize it with, I don't know if caution is the right word, with respect.
It's called integrity.
But nonetheless, like that's what's out there. But it's not just, so I've just been sitting up here like a railing about like carriers, brokers and inversing carriers. But the thing is, like, carriers should be vetting your brokers just as much as, as we're vetting you. So
That's where I was going.
Lots of broker carrier agreements they're heavily going to favor the broker. There are many brokerages who like the kind of hard and fast rules that we explained earlier. Will only do those, right? Like if you don't agree to their broker carrier agreement, you can piss off, like they don't care. There are also brokerages like mine that if you come to me and you're like, Claudia, like here's your broker carrier agreement, but like these two sections, like I'm not loving this part right here. Is there something that like, and frankly, like our attorneys wrote it. There's like one paragraph that I just don't love. Like I'm like, so if someone comes to me and they say, I don't, I don't agree with this subheading, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, meh, I thought it was kind of bogus too. So yeah, it's fine. I mean, I'm not going to say that, right? But I will say like, yeah, we can redline that. And so then you have an opportunity to redline that and then upload your redlined contract and enter into a contract that you're in complete agreement with. But the thing is, there are so many people who will not do that. Carriers won't look at their agreements. Well, if you're clicking through a broker carrier agreement in less than a minute, what have you read? And I'm not trying to be tacky, I'm just saying. Like,
No, valid
I
point.
a carrier come back to me and argue with me about my broker carrier agreement, because to me that means that at least you've read it. So that's a good sign to me. So read your broker carrier agreements when you're onboarding with someone, whether or not you can actually like redline it or not. At least be aware of what it says. There are broker carrier agreements that say that a carrier is not going to get paid if the broker doesn't get paid. There are broker carrier agreements that say the opposite. There are broker, like my broker carrier agreement says that if you don't give me all the documents that I need to bill my customer, I'm not going to pay you. Like you have to submit to me all the documents associated with that load that you were given so that I can file so I can get paid and you can get paid. Now, you don't have to wait for me to get paid, but I need all of that paperwork in order to make that happen before that will be released. So there's all kinds of different things in a broker carrier agreement that you may not, that oftentimes is just overlooked.
Yeah, I've been dispatching for 5 years. And if it's one thing that I've learned to do, it's to try to screen agreements as best I can, as quickly as I can. And there are certain things that I'm looking for when I go through an agreement, whether it's MCP, RMIS, highway, whatever. When I can actually read an agreement, I'm looking for usually a statement about transparency. If there's a waiver of transparency in there, I'm looking at payment terms. I'm looking at accessorial statements. I'm looking for little things like that, just so I know what I'm getting into, as you've pointed out, because I have missed that stuff in my early years. I don't think there's a single dispatcher out there who can sit there and say, "Oh, I'm an expert. I got this." Bullshit. There's new things being slipped into agreements all the damn time. I brought up transparency a moment ago. That is definitely a hot button. That is something that I'm sure a lot of attorneys and a lot of brokers are looking at this right now.
Sure.
Especially since FMCSA is not going to tackle the idea of the waiver. Since FMCSA is not even dealing with waivers right now, I'm willing to bet that most brokers are just go ahead and inserting that statement in there right as we speak.
Right. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if you know what you're signing, then you've got an idea what the hell you're getting yourself into. So for a carrier, in addition to reviewing the documents, what else do you think they should be doing to vet you better, to make sure that they're making good decisions by working with you?
So you should check where you can for your own referrals, right? Check where you can for your own reviews. A broker can be reported on Carrier 401. And I know that whole thing is like coming. So there are platforms now, because I don't want to get into just one platform. And I mean, if we want to one time sit down or in future times say, okay, we're going to look at this platform and what it can and can't do, I'm happy to do that. But I don't want to get like bogged down in that right now. And so what I will say is that there are multiple platforms in which a carrier can report a broker. Wherever those are, look at those. Because I'm guaranteed, like I looked up mine on DAT. Like I've got a couple negative reviews on DAT. They're like 3 years old, but I have them when our brokerage was barely starting to grow. And it's like, it was a terrible broker. They lied about the pickup time. I don't know if a lie is the right word. There was definitely obviously something went wrong, but I don't know what it was. That was before I was even that heavily on this side of the company. But
shut up, Sage. Sorry.
But no worries. But nonetheless, like look that up. If you're on DAT, you're booking on DAT, you can absolutely see reviews on brokers.
Sure.
It's like 100% it's there. So that's an option for you to look at. Run their credit. If you have a factoring company as a carrier, if you have a factoring company, work with your factoring company, ask them, can we do credit checks? Our asset side, our factoring company, we run credit checks for every broker that we onboard with, for to make sure that they pass the credit check required for our just to make sure that we can go ahead and start to work with them on that. Make the callbacks, do your own due diligence and callbacks. Listen, like, we shouldn't be the only people making that phone call to that phone number that's listed, for per the federal government. Say like, hey, this is the legitimate phone number for that company, and call that phone number. Because if you call me and say, hey, I want to verify that I'm booking this load, I'm booking a load with you, then I can tell you, like, when you start rounding off to me a number that has nothing to do with any of those sequence of loads that we have, I'm like, hey, that's not our load.
Yeah.
So that prevents you from wasting fuel, wasting effort, wasting time. And
let me jump in just real quick here. Just a minute, Claudia. I don't mean to cut you off, but I was trying to let you get through your thing there. So with carriers, when they come to me, and I always offer due diligence for the carriers, especially. I help brokers as well, but brokers have a kind of better handle on their shippers than carriers with the brokers. But the first thing that I look at is, somebody sends me over and says, what do you think of this broker? Well, first of all, I have a factoring company that lets me use their days to pay credit. So I go and see if they have credit with that factoring company and how many days to pay they are if they're on a no buy. Because if they're on a no buy, they're probably on a no buy for everybody. Usually,
right.
it's usually a reason for that. If you find that they're a no buy for one broker is a no buy for one factoring company, they're probably on that no buy for everybody. So, or there's a reason for it. That's the first thing I check. I also check on the FMCSA to see how long they've had their authority, their broker authority. They just start brokering loads yesterday. Have they been around for a while? Is there, I look on review platforms like DAT, Google Reviews, Bizpedia to see if anybody's reported them for non-payment and how recent that was. You might have a non-payment one from 3 years ago, but if you had great reviews since, then maybe there was just something that slipped through the cracks, or there was an issue with that load that they didn't get their paperwork in, or there was a reason for that happening. Then I always also look at if there's any reports out there for where they've allowed other companies to pick up a load that wasn't the right company on, or they are brokers checking, to see if there's the right name on the door, so to speak, or whatever, and then I check into seeing if there's just anything I can find out there that just seems to hint at them being nefarious for whatever reason. If there's I also go on Safer Watch and I do the fraud check on there to see if they have other companies that are at that same address. Sometimes you'll have a broker that's listed at an address with 4 other brokers and 2 carriers. And there's 10 companies operating out of the same address, and that's a little hard to wrap your head around how they're all related then. Also, I pay attention to the hot spots where you're seeing a lot of fraud coming out of. We all know about the Armenian bubble out in California. We all know about Las Vegas. We all know that recently there's been a lot more loads coming out of Florida that are fraudulent. So watch those hot spots and know where those hot spots are. As a carrier that's working the spot market, you should know where those hot spots are. You can find that anywhere. It used to be Overland Park, Kansas, as well as Indianapolis, Indiana, were hotbeds for a while. So just knowing where those hotbeds are, and it just gives you an extra, one extra box to check. As far as the brokers vetting carriers and using inspections, obviously, like John said, we can't get voluntary inspections anymore. So that kind of defeated the purpose anyway. But I always say that you can't use that as a hard and fast rule, like, oh, they have no inspections, so they must be fraudulent. It's just one of those other boxes to check to say, that's another iffy thing to look at. If you've got a lot of iffy things, then that adds up to a meh, no, I'm not going to use them. If you have one iffy thing, but everything else is great, you might be able to overlook that. Also, the same goes with somebody just came through chocolate in front of me, and my whole got totally derailed right there. Don't throw the chocolate in front of me. There's a whole train of thought. But so just things that you're checking on that list of things to check off. Oh, I know the other one I was gonna say. So I have found doing collections and being able to look back at all of the things that we find that the fraudulent brokers if you're looking at DAT, all of their names, the names of those brokerage companies, are in all capital letters. That does not mean that all companies whose names are in all capital letters are fraudulent. It just means that, as a general rule, we have found that when they have been fraudulent, they've had all capital letters. So you can't use that as an exclusionary thing as well. But it's one of those things. If you got a lot of things that are kind of making that hair stand up on the back of your neck, and that's just one more box you can check, it might be a reason for you to, filter them down the list somewhere.
I have seen a lot of carriers sit there and say, how am I supposed to sit here and vet a broker when I have literally 20 seconds to make a decision as to whether or not I'm going to chase after a load, especially off the spot market? And I think that's
a
most
relationship
true.
thing, though.
I think it's most true with the box trucks and the hot shots, because there's such market saturation of those. When a load pops up that is of decent quality on the boards, every one of their brothers calling at that same time. You better be ready to commit right then and there.
Yeah.
So
that's where I would suggest for carriers to utilize Freight Validate. Like, you can talk to the machine and tell it to check. Like, I'm not saying that's the end all be all, because I don't believe there's any one vetting service that is like all of it, all of everything. But like, for that quick initial gut check for the box truck carriers, that kind of thing, being able to have that Freight Validate, like, you guys can check brokers on here, have it check a broker, have it come back, and then go ahead and make your call. And while you're doing that, then you can look up, message or however it is that you contact your person at factoring or your genie in a bottle to say, like, hey, what do you think about this broker? Like, do that while you're, in the queue waiting to get into that call to find out if you're going to book that load or not. So, but there, and that's a quick check, right? Like, I have carriers that pass my vetting standards, my rules on highway, that I still think are shady. I have carriers, because here's the thing: you can be operating completely legally and still be shady AF. Okay, like let's look at that. And so, it's a thing with brokers. Like, Dale posted a thing the other day talking about the percentage of brokers versus carriers that were like marked X in Freight Validate. There's a lot. Like, the percentage is much higher of bad brokers to bad carriers. Well, not bad, not able to Freight Validate carriers.
They're a little sus.
Not able to Freight Validate brokers, to the other side. So, I get that. Like, I understand it's scary. And, and then you have, again, all of the identity issues with, someone takes a decent and good carrier, and someone will take a good carrier or a good, broker, and take that MC and then start doing fraudulent things with it if you don't have someone who's doing the due diligence. Like John was talking about, that broker that uses, just takes down an MC number and says, okay, here's my load. Like, I can't even, like, the anxiety that I would have is through the roof for that kind of thing. But you want to, you've got the opportunity to check in other ways. So let's try to do that, because there are bad brokers. 100%.
Oh yeah.
Bad brokers.
This
Like,
whole industry is based on relationships, and you should have a relationship with any brokers that you're going to use, or be developing your relationship with that broker. And if you're in that area and that broker is doing you well, then you should onboard with them and continue to try to find loads with them, so that you can build that relationship, so that you can be the green X's all the way across, so that they know that you're going to be the good carrier. You can go to the front of the line like I did, when you're not building those relationships, that's when you're struggling to hurry up and get a load before somebody else gets it. I mean, if you're in that market frequently, you shouldn't have to be scrambling within 20 seconds to get a load. I mean, you should be knowing who are good brokers in that area that you can work with. You should be looking for those same brokers over again when they've done you right, to work with them again, to develop those relationships. And you need to be selling your services. As a carrier, what are you bringing to the table? What are you offering to this load that gets you a better rate than the other person that may be on the other line or whatever? So,
and you guys, I will say, like, listen, like, you hear people in the industry, and like, please like, Jeannie, this isn't like I'm not trying to be disrespectful to you at all, but like, it's easy for me and risk management when I don't book loads every day. It's easy for me to look at my load coordinators and say, why can't you just do this, right? I see tools that are available for them. I see tools that are available for my carrier side, from my dispatchers over there. And I'm like, why don't you just do this? But until you sit in that seat and you do those things, like, I understand that there are some things that until I get there, like, I don't necessarily understand what they are. But as a whole in the industry, we preach relationships, but I'm going to tell you, we are absolutely shit about it. We're like a spouse we're like a spouse who demands like monogamy, but then wants to go run around. We're like, you have to have a relationship basis with me, but I can do whatever I want on the other side. And we talk about relationships and how important they are, but as soon as someone comes along with a better price, then like, where'd that relationship go? And it shouldn't be that way, but it is that way. It's not that way with every carrier. It's not that way with every broker, but it is rampant in our industry that we have people talking about relationships who don't actually do those relationships, who don't actually work on them that way. And I'm like, I'm not inside to know that, right? Like, I don't get in a relationship with a carrier until there's a claim. So like, nobody wants me to have.
By that same token, I had a carrier that was a newer authority. They actually had a lapse of authority when they were looking for insurance, and they wound up having to start back over as a new authority, even though they had been an authority, and they couldn't understand why they couldn't get loads booked. And they were saying these compliance teams, these brokers were saying their compliance team won't. I said the compliance team is there for a reason. It's so that brokers don't get hornswoggled into taking whatever whatever line of BS you're serving that day and approving somebody that didn't need to be approved. I said, because the compliance team is there to cover you, the broker, dispatcher, person that's booking the load, because you guys will listen to that line and buy it and put somebody on there, and then later go, oh shoot, I shouldn't have done that. I said that's what they're there for, is to mitigate the risk that comes with that brokerage. And I know they get upset sometimes, but I tell them it's not personal. It's a hard and fast rule to help. If you don't check all these boxes, then you can't haul for us, and there's a reason. And I always say the same thing with contracts. Contracts get rules written into them, and contracts change when somebody gets bitten by something that wasn't covered in their contract already. Same thing with getting the compliance for getting a load. This broker might be really lenient until they get bit by something, then they add another rule. Then they get bit by something, they add another rule. Then they get bit by something. It's a rule of CYA because you just got bit. So because somebody already did it to them. So don't take it personally. It's not you personally that's calling in the reason that they have the rule in place necessarily, but understand that it's happened to them before, which is why they had to implement that rule. So
100%.
It can be a challenge for both carriers and brokers in trying to navigate some of the different fraud that takes place in this industry, for sure. And having those relationships do help. Being a dispatcher for over 5 years, I know what brokers I can trust. I know what brokers I can't trust right off the get-go. So when I chase after a load, I already know I'm good for it. But I also can recognize right away, like earlier today, I see something for Armstrong Transport Group come out, and it was like $10 a mile for a box truck load going 300 miles. And I'm just like, that is huge, not happening.
Did you call Armstrong and ask them if there's?
I did. I did. I got a hold of their risk management department and let them know what was going on. They were investigating it. But this is the second time I think in 2 months I've seen Armstrong get hit. I see brokers get hit every day. But I recognize that only because I have those relationships. I've developed that. I know what I'm looking for.
And our background in fraud.
Well, yes, and our background in fraud. But I mean, by paying attention to just what the rate for the lane should be, what the average rate is, that sends a lot of flags up if there's something that's amiss. There are ways to briefly vet brokers, carriers. And to Jason's comment earlier, he said we need to have a carrier on the show. Well, we're already at an hour. We're already at an hour. So don't get me wrong, Jason. We'll give you an opportunity. I'll bring you on here in the next week or so, and we could talk about the carrier side of vetting things. Okay, and I'd love to get some more thoughts out there because it is a two-way street.
He doesn't
You
vet.
know, brokers don't rule the industry as a lot of carriers think. They have a heavy hand in it, but they don't rule it. Okay, so there's ways to get through that. And Jason, I would like to get your thoughts on a future show. We'll tie down on that. We do need to go ahead and start wrapping this up. So, Claudia, do you have any final thoughts, questions, concerns for our audience?
I feel like all I've done is give my thoughts. So I'm going to say thank you for the opportunity to let me do that. And if anybody is watching that would, that says, I got turned down for a load at General Transportation and I want to know why, I will reach out to John. John, I'll give you the email that I would prefer you to use in that situation.
Okay.
And we'll do that. And then, I mean, I'm happy to discuss and want to, to help the situation because I understand it's tough on both sides. Like sometimes it seems like I don't get it from both sides. But I do understand.
Awesome. Thank you, Claudia. Jenny, thank you so much for joining us.
I
What
just
you
thank
got
you,
for us
Claudia,
today?
for not letting me run the whole show because I've done it before for John. I mean, I'm glad to hear your thoughts and your opinions on this. It's always good to hear other people's sides and hear how you guys are combating the fraud and doing the vetting. So I'm glad that you guys will at least listen to a carrier if they have a good, valid reason for why they don't have inspections or they don't have some criteria that you have that you're at least willing to hear because a lot of brokers just say no and they hang up in your face and that's just that. So I do appreciate that. John, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure every time.
Always. Kate, again, I'm so glad that you are feeling better. You got any final thoughts before we get to our final sponsor break?
I hope 2025 is better and full of less scumbags.
That would
Me
be
too.
nice. I got a feeling, though, the scumbags are here to stay at least for quite a while. Let's put it this way. I don't think the double broker bounty hunter is going to be out of a job anytime soon.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's going to take a long time to undo all the fraud and the scumbags that we've seen out there.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But part of that is also knowing how to properly bid for your loads. You got to know whether or not something is too good to be true. You got to know if something's too low. And you don't know if it's too good to be true or if it's too low if you don't even know your own cost. And that's where AccuBid Pro comes in.
Do you know your cost per mile? Have you been hitting your profit margins? Do you struggle with bidding in a way that is both profitable and competitive? Would it be worth it to have all this information right in front of you? By calculating your cost per mile, AccuBid Pro helps you stay profitable in an industry still struggling to recover. In order to calculate your cost per mile, AccuBid Pro asks you questions about your business expenses. Our goal is to help you understand what you need to keep operating in order to keep up with the game and maintain your business. Enter your origin and destination, and we show you what you should bid based on your personal cost per mile in order to be profitable, even including a more detailed breakdown of each bid. Download the app today and get your 30-day free trial of AccuBid Pro, available on the App Store and Google Play. Bid smarter, bid faster, bid better with AccuBid Pro.
Well, Violet here wants to say goodbye to everybody as well. So say goodbye, Violet. Folks, remember, Stop the Scam. Don't go climbing too far now. Stop the Scam is around every Monday, 5 p.m. Central on all the Lounge Media Group social media outlets. Please be sure to check us out. If you get into a jam and you need to get a hold of Kate or I, we have new emails. So please hit us up at jcantera@stopthescampodcast.com or kprice@stopthescampodcast.com. We will very soon have a website at that address. So feel free to check that out, and hopefully we'll be streaming from that address in the not too distant future. For those of you who have not filed your comments yet on the broker transparency but still wish to do so, the deadline is January 21st. This is the link that you need to go to in order to file that. Just a programming note, we are going to be doing our anniversary show on January 27th. That's a few weeks away. And we'll be issuing a couple of awards during that show. So it should be very interesting, to say the least. Lots of snow and ice out there. Big ice storm and snowstorm went through just a little while ago across the center of the country. And now we got one starting up on the south side. So be very careful out there. And, no matter what you do, don't let scammers take you for a ride. We will see you all next